Hi, everyone. This is Bowen Yang.
And I'm Matt Rogers,
co-host of the podcast Las Culturistas. We're inviting you to treat yourself with the gift of pleasure.
Oh, yes. Trojan Ecstasy Ultra Ribbed has a unique design that actually lets you feel the pleasure, not the condom.
That's all I've ever wished for on my birthday.
Scorpio Queen, horned up king. And with ultra smooth premium lubricant and extra deep ribs to increase stimulation, both partners are sure to experience ecstasy.
Pick up some Trojan Ecstasy Ultra Ribbed condoms, triple tested and trusted for over 100 years.
Trojan, feel your best. Get yours on.
Welcome to Scary Time by Indie Drop-In Network. Each week, we feature an episode from the best independent creators. Subscribe for great, scary content. If you would like to help Indie Drop-In support indie creators, you can buy us a coffee. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/indie drop-in or click the link in the show notes below. Today's episode is from Weird Distractions Podcast. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to subscribe and follow on social media. Enjoy the show.
Begin.
Distractions Podcast, a podcast where we chat true crime, conspiracy theories, paranormal stories, folklore, cryptids, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Sometimes we also tell you recipes for pierogi casseroles, so...
Because it's bomb.
I'm Alex.
I'm Christie.
And this week we are back talking paranormal stories, and no, I'm not going to include the pierogi casserole recipe in the episode, I'm sorry.
Look it up on some Pinterest.
Yeah, just Pinterest it. But before we dive into our paranormal story and our paranormal location, Christy, what is your need for a distraction?
My need for a distraction this week is I have this weekend off.
Woo!
Which is a little break.
Yes.
And I'm distracting this little break along with this because I just finished 19 days.
Oh my god.
And I start another 19 days when this weekend's over. So, living my best life, not.
Living my best life, getting that bread.
And that's it.
But also not getting any sleep.
Or life.
Yeah. I mean, we're still kind of in lockdown, so it's not like we could go out and do things anyways.
No, and it better be over this week.
Yeah, Doug Ford, if you're listening, because we know you're listening, we know you've subscribed to our Distractions podcast. If you could,
Jokes.
If you could do us a big old favor and lift the lockdown, that'd be superb.
Great.
That'd be great. My need for a distraction. I just woke up really anxious today.
Mm-hmm.
And, couldn't stop crying. At one point, straight up, I woke up. I was in an okay mood, and then as the morning progressed, for some reason I also woke up at 7 a.m., so that was not great on a Saturday.
That's too
when
early.
we're recording, yeah. But yeah, I just was really anxious, and I couldn't shake it off. I don't know.
Your body is just let these tears pour out of you.
Yeah, well, and work's been really stressful. There's been, other stuff going on, so I think...
There's everything building up.
Yeah, so there's just another good reminder that bottling things up just doesn't really help, right?
No, so a little mini breakdown this morning. Now we're going to distract, then we'll be great.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about paranormal stuff, because that's what makes me happy.
Yay!
So this week we are going to good old Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, have we been to Ireland?
You have, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I know. Physically, I've been to Ireland.
Okay.
I mean, with the show, have we been to Ireland?
My memory's pretty vague. Probably, I don't know.
I know we've been to Scotland. So anyways, we're going to Ireland. This week's distraction is the infamous Kilmainham Gaol, a former jail turned museum located on Inchicore Road in Kilmainham, Dublin, Ireland. So it's kind of a suburb in Dublin.
I see that 5 times fast.
I know. I have Jolly Phonicsed it, and I've practiced it this morning, but you
She's still a tongue twister.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Anyways, the funny thing is I pick these. I do this to myself.
I do this on purpose.
Exactly. So I've had this location kind of in the back of my head to cover at some point because our friend Jamie, who's been on the show, I think she was on for our Titanic episode as well as Celebrity Conspiracy Series. Go listen to those. But Jamie and I actually went to this place back in 2017 when we went to Ireland. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. I'll show you. We'll post pictures on our Instagram, but I'm going to show Christy after the episode.
Good.
Yes, because it's As always, before we dive into the reported hauntings, we have to cover the history of this location. The history portion of this location is a bit heavy in comparison to the paranormal
Part.
but there's still ghosties around, so don't get discouraged. And as well, just a heads up that there could have been a lot of historical rabbit holes that I could have gone down in terms of things that were happening when this jail kind of started, things that have happened since this jail has started. I cover a little bit of them, but didn't go full balls to the wall, so to speak.
Gotcha.
So the jail story begins way back at approximately 1796, when it first opened its doors to be the new county jail for Dublin. The creation of the jail was meant to challenge how historical jails were created. Essentially, it was the hot, new take on a classic model. It came in right to the main stage and was like, hey, I've got something to sell.
Purse first.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually just finished that season of RuPaul's Drag Race, so
Bob.
I love Bob the Drag Queen. Anyways, the jail was inspired by a more modern design that was meant to support more separation of inmates from a typically crammed setting that people had kind of been used to or kind of seen prior to, as well as encourage more hygiene and work for prisoners. So, you know, human rights and stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff. The other hope from the creation of Kilmainham Gaol was that prisoners would actually be safely reintegrated back into society as opposed to previous models. The designer of the jail was Sir John Traill, who created the original complex with the following layout, and this kind of quote I'm going to share with you is from the History Ireland website, and it reads, "The prison had an entrance and administrative block to the north, a spine block running north-south, and to either side, the cells set around 2 central yards. A series of yards dedicated to specific activities or types of prisoner were arranged around the cell blocks. A high limestone wall with bastions to the 4 corners enclosed the entire complex. The present entrance block, with its heavy rusticated and vermiculated stonework and chained hydra, a mythical and dangerous many-headed serpent, over the door, was part of the original building. The 2 wings on either side of the entrance forming the entrance court are later additions. To the east, the governor's apartments, to the west, the stone breaker's yard." Not sure if this next part was Sir John's doing, but there was a specific part of the original building where prisoners sent for execution by hanging would be taken up so that the community could watch their final breaths. In a direct quote from the History Ireland website, "Public hangings were done from the gallows directly above the doorway. The combination of the hydra and chains and the hanged emphasized the control of those threatening society." So very ominous and very intense.
Interesting.
Yes. So needless to say, true crime entertainment was even borderline inhumane back in the 18th century, which this isn't shade to the true crime community because we are kind of a part of the true crime community, but there's obviously been discussions about what is inhumane and what's just educational. And I think this borders the inhumane side of things and not super great.
Gotcha.
Yeah. One notable public hanging included that of Robert Emmet, who was a reported famous Irish revolutionary leader who met his demise at the jail on September 20th, 1803, after being convicted for treason. Dun, 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 dun. In a very bold but patriotic move, Robert had requested that his body be put in an unmarked grave until Ireland was free from English rule. And according to the Scratchable Map Ireland website by Vera O'Dryer, no one knows where his body is to this day.
So yeah, why would you put yourself in an unmarked grave and wait for something that probably may never happen, and then you just get forgotten?
I mean,
You're trying to make a point, but then you get forgotten.
it's a statement.
It's a statement.
It's a statement.
A forgotten statement.
Yeah. Maybe he also just didn't want to be bothered in the afterlife, too. Maybe he said that and secretly was like, I also just don't want anyone coming to visit me after I die.
Maybe.
So, in an Irish Times article by Ronan McGreevy, it was documented that Robert's head was displayed to the crowd by the hangman, and the remains were supposed to be taken to the Royal Hospital. However, when friends went to the hospital to take them to St. McCann's Church, Robert's body was nowhere to be found.
Great name for a church.
Yeah, it's not spelled the same way as your last name, though.
It sounds the same.
I think it's either St. McCann's or St. Michon's or Michon's. I didn't jolly phonics that one, so I am sorry.
We're saying it's McCann.
We're going to say it's McCann. But anyways, back to the jail. Even though there were high hopes for this jail, that it was kind of going to be like the golden child of its era, that it was going to just bring it to the runway, it was going to do what the jails before it couldn't do.
Clearly not, though.
Yeah, shit kind of hit the fan. So it didn't really take long for overcrowding to happen. Cells that were designed to maybe hold 1 to 2 people were kind of starting to burst at the seams. And this could be, well, this is for numerous reasons. One reason I kind of picked up on when I was looking at my photos from the jail, when Jay and I went, people were kind of arrested for really silly things way back when. So, for example, a woman by the name of Elizabeth Flynn was arrested for stealing turnips from a field and was sentenced to jail for 1 week.
Okay, I get like the light sentence, but it's like you have to go to jail for a week for that?
Turnips.
For turnips.
I mean, it's still stealing.
Theft, but what's the point of sending them to jail for a week? Like, why don't you send
For
them
turnips.
Why don't you send them for like probation
Exactly.
or like some kind of whatever other torture they would do for whatever?
Yeah. Elizabeth's sentence may not be as long as others, though, such as 21-year-old Patrick Connor, who was sentenced 3 months for stealing a pig's cheek.
That's it. Why does she get a week and he gets 3 months?
I mean, the pig, I guess? I don't know. Is that considered, like, animal cruelty?
Is it actual, like, they took a cheek off a pig, or, like, he bought a portion of that, like, he stole that meat portion from a store?
Honestly,
because you could buy weird parts of animals.
My imagine went to the first one where he just broke into someone's farm at night.
And cut it off? I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure, like, there's for sale a pig cheek for $4, and they stole it.
This is where we differ as people.
Realistic? You unrealistic.
I went into the darkest form of
He
this
went and skinned this pig and then was sentenced to jail. Okay.
for 3 months. So I think we can kind of appreciate that laws were obviously a lot different a long time ago in comparison to now, and technically speaking, these crimes are still considered theft. Like, theft is theft.
Yes.
But it just like kind of became apparent to me that people were probably getting picked up for very minor offenses and being held in prison because of that. It's kind of like how people used to be incarcerated for marijuana, like possession of marijuana.
And now it's legal.
And now look at us, Canada. It's more legal to smoke pot than it is to get together with your family members. Anyways, so that's kind of one reason that I think for overcrowding. So, I will say that I do recall learning how some prisoners, mostly the ones there for kind of more severe or heinous crimes, such as murder, were shipped to Australia, but I don't necessarily think that really helped the overcrowding in good old Kilmainham.
No, probably not. If they're like arresting at that kind of rate of stupid shit.
Yeah. It wasn't until 1840 when a block of 30 cells was reportedly added to the West Wing, which seemed to alleviate the overcrowding for a hot second. In 1845 came the Great Famine in Ireland, also known as the Irish Potato Famine, which reportedly lasted until 1849. For those unaware of this devastating historical Irish event, essentially it was a time of starvation after the most successful potato crops of Ireland suffered from late blight, which, according to the Britannica website, is a disease that destroys the leaves and the edible roots of the potato plant.
That's very unfortunate.
Oh boy, it was not good. This meant that whatever potato dependency the Irish had, along with surrounding European areas, because a lot of these places were getting their potatoes from Ireland, were about to go through some major potato withdrawals.
Me love me some potats.
Yeah, I don't know where I'd be without a potato, so I'm not...
Speaking of pierogi casserole.
Yeah. Speaking of pierogi casserole. No, kidding. Needless to say, this was a really devastating time. This is a time also where, I don't know what broadcast it was, but I remember watching a commercial and it was essentially saying, I think it was for Ancestry.
Okay.
Where the setting was the Great Potato Famine. And they were saying, we have to leave, this, that, and the other. And then they came to Canada. Like, this family came to Canada. So it was like, you should get your Ancestry DNA to learn when your family was, forced into starvation because of the Great Potato Famine, essentially.
Well, that's depressing.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I took it, once again.
Because you take things dark. Okay.
I take things really dark. So, regardless, this was a really challenging time for the entire country. Many people who purposefully commit petty crimes just essentially so they could kind of go to jail and get food.
Oh, so
Yeah.
they potatoes at jail.
Yeah, so the jail had a good amount of food to still offer to its inmates. And because people knew that...
Like, arrest me.
Essentially, yeah. But at some point, the jail even had to cut their own food back because people were coming in being like, oh, well, I'm only here for this long, but I'm starving. Feed me.
I would say that kind of works in your favor if you're a short sentence, but if you're a long sentence, you kind of just fucked yourself for that.
Well, yeah. And not only that, too, but it just goes to show how desperate
they were.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I'd rather be incarcerated just to feed myself.
Yeah. And when I refer to people at the jail, I'm not just referring to adult males and females or anybody. I'm also referring to children. Because according to some reports, there were even kids incarcerated at this jail. According to other reports, apparently segregation wasn't really a thing at this jail, especially in the early years, which is kind of ironic because that's what they created it for. But they would have women, children, and men all meshed in one area.
That sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah, the youngest prisoner was reportedly 7 years old, who was arrested for petty theft.
7.
7.
That's no.
7.
No.
I remember stealing candy when I was like a young kid.
And being caught?
No.
Okay.
Because I'm too slick. But, it's just... You wouldn't send a kid for stealing candy or stealing food.
Yeah, to prison.
Exactly.
No.
So it just... Bad scene, bad times. The jail would essentially become a home to starving people coming in to survive and would face overcrowding because of the famine. Plus, you have like a mix of kids and adults. You've got people starving, you've got people upset, you've got people depressed, people have lost loved ones because of starvation or disease. It's just chaos. It's just chaos at this time.
And my thought goes like dark too. Like I think now there's all these different varieties of people in jail. There's a lot of access to people that are bad, that are actually bad in there.
Yep, that aren't well.
That are going to have access to children and women. And I'm like,
Yep. So not a great situation.
No.
In another attempt to try and ease the overcrowding, the old East Wing was demolished and replaced with a new 3-story wing in 1861. This new design, according to the History Ireland website, was created by John McCurdy, who created a new Victorian-style prison which organized around the principle of central observation and control.
Hey, it's Nikki Glazer. I want you to get everything you want. And the thing I want you to get the most? Laid. Yeah, that's right. I want you to have sex. And what better way to have sex than to use Trojan bearskin raw condoms? Cuddle up on that bearskin rug, throw on a bearskin condom, and it'll feel as close to the real thing as possible. They're triple tested and trusted for over 100 years, with silky smooth lubricant to increase comfort and sensitivity. Don't be cuh. You gotta wear a condom. They're cool. Buy them, share them, gift them, wear them. Grow up and get Trojan bearskin raw condoms. Trojan, America's #1 condom brand. Feel your best and get yours on.
Dan, Saatva is the best mattress choice for us. After all, how could you go wrong with their risk-free 180-day in-home trial and 15-year warranty?
That does sound risk-free. Takes me back to some of our risk-free vacations.
You mean that rafting excursion you claimed to be risk-free but ended in a 4-story waterfall? Or the African safari that ended with a flat tire by the lion's den? Or the...
You know what? Let's just order our Saatva.
Get $200 off your purchase of $1,000 or more at saatva.com/200.
Very fancy.
Very.
This newly designed East Wing would allow prison staff to have a view of every cell door in the block, which super handy, I can imagine. Now, in terms of conditions, like if you were someone at this jail, this is
Probably nil.
Not great. They weren't the best. So, for example, men were reportedly given iron bedsteads to sleep on, while women and children prisoners were expected to sleep on the floor. Because food was cut off, or not cut off, but it was cut back. You can imagine that at one point they were offering 3 meals a day, that there was plentiful, and then obviously when the famine came in, things were slowly cutting back, plus with overcrowding too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just wasn't great. It wasn't great. The prison continued to function until 1910, where it would essentially temporarily close after serving the area for 114 years. Based on one of the photos that I took back at the jail, it is believed that the jail was used as a military detention barracks shortly after its closure.
If it closed, where'd all the inmates go?
They're probably just shipped around, depending on what they did, where, they were from, this, that, and the other. So, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit everywhere, Probably back down to Australia. Who knows at this rate? So I say temporarily closure, as mentioned, because in 1916 it would reopen again, and this time to serve as a detention site for the Easter Rising. Now, for our non-Irish listeners who maybe think that this is a segue to talking about a family Easter dinner gone bad, I'm going to spit some information about the situation so no one gets it twisted. And no, it's not about a family Easter dinner gone bad. It's...
Well, darn.
It's a lot more intense.
Okay.
I also want to apologize in advance because I kind of just covered the basis of this situation. I didn't do a huge deep dive. I'm sure there's tons of other podcasts out there that do deep dives of retelling the history of this, so we'll obviously check them out, but that is not where we're at today. So the Easter Rising, also referred to as the Easter Rebellion, was the Irish insurrection against the British government, according to the Britannica website. The actual event started on April 24th, 1916, and backed by the Irish Republican Brotherhood. It lasted until April 29th of that year. From my understanding, this group of people, among others from Ireland, wanted independence for Britain. They were tired of Britain's shit. They wanted to do their own thing. They wanted to be their own country. They were just not having it anymore.
Over it.
They were like, get your own fucking potatoes. I'm so fucking done.
I need my spuds.
Yeah, I want my... Get your own spuds, damn it. Some of the main characters behind this include Patrick Pearse, Thomas James Clark, Eamon Cant, James Connolly, Sean Madirmada... Sorry, Sean, if I pronounced your last name wrong. I did jolly phonics it, though. Thomas MacDonough, Joseph Mary Plunkett, to name a few. According to the Alice Obscura website, the group of men mentioned were tried in secret at the jail, just adding to the tension of the situation. So they were all apprehended. They were taken to the Kilmainham Gaol, tried there in secret, kind of... I don't want to say off record, but kind of...
And why?
Well...
We'll get into it? Okay.
Well, we're not going to kind of get super into it, but it was just a really tense situation. I think those that were that captured them, so like the police and the government, were still tied to the British. So these guys were like, fuck Britain, we want to be separate. Do you see where I'm going?
I think so.
Okay. So shit was just really tense. Yeah. So yeah, they were tried in secret, and they would be shortly executed for starting the rebellion to begin with. So things escalated quick. Executions by firing squad started on May 3rd, 1916 at the jail and went until May 12th. Once again, the jail would close its doors after this in 1924 and would stay closed until roughly 1960. So just to kind of go back a bit, when you do go to the jail, there is a lot of information in terms of the Easter Rising. They talk about it extensively. It's just fascinating. And I mean, I think with any place that you're aware of how many deaths took place, you kind of are a little bit in awe of what history you're walking on, so to speak. As far as memory serves me, they actually take you to where executions were held. So the hangings, obviously, you got to see that. But then they also took you to where these people were executed by firing squad after the Easter Rising. It's really intense, but I would obviously recommend it, especially if you are interested, if you maybe identify as Irish, or you have an Irish history, or you're just interested in the culture, or you're just looking for something to do. Educate yourself. I don't know. Fuck.
Just do it.
Just do it. So yeah, anyways, the jail would close in 1924, as mentioned, but this isn't the end of it at all.
Clearly not.
Obviously not. After the jail had closed, no one was using it, nothing was happening to it, it just kind of sat. So from 1924 to 1960...
Ooh, she abandoned a long time.
Yeah, it was pretty... not really doing so well. Nature slowly started taking over, parts of the roof were collapsing, it was just a hot mess, right? A reported grassroots volunteer group called the Kilmainham Gaol Restoration Committee came together in 1960 with desires to reopen the prison and bring it back to life. In 1966, the jail reopened to celebrate the anniversary of the Rising with the success of the volunteer group. The volunteer group managed the property until it was handed over to the state in 1986. The jail now open for public tours. I mean, obviously COVID pending, because
the world sucks.
Because we're still in the fucking panorama. But yes, it obviously offers tours, as mentioned, since Jamie and I went there, and it was, once again, one of the best tours in Ireland that we went to.
Best tour in your life?
I would say so. Thus far. So the tour essentially goes over 3 floors, like where the inmates were held, different parts of it, what have you. It also has a gift shop and a tea shop, which is kind of nice. You get to see the outside of the jail, inside. It's just really well done. Would recommend to my friends, which is everybody listening right now. So I also want to note that there were a lot of other various noteworthy people who spent time in the jail that I haven't mentioned. However, once again, I think this is one of those places that everyone should go to if you're in Dublin and you're kind of want to get more of that information for yourself. There's so much history to this place that it's kind of hard to just try to bear it down without having to acknowledge little pieces this, that, and the other, or potentially miss some things, right? But that's kind of the history of the jail. Now on to the spookiness that is...
the good stuff.
The jail, yes. The spookiness that's still imprisoned in the jail.
Okay, no.
I'm sorry.
And I'm recognizing that. Yeah. Acknowledging.
Yeah, thank you. So the spooky section is going to feel like a little bit of a light sentence. I'm sorry for the jail puns, but come on. They're like right here in front of me. I can't not say them.
Continue.
Anyways. But this location is too good to pass up as a spooky, weird distraction. I also want to acknowledge perhaps why people may think this place is haunted by reflecting back to an old theory from a previous episode. So back when we discussed the Edinburgh vaults, I brought up the stone tape theory that essentially believes that certain areas hold on to energy sources because they're made of stone. Physical impressions are kind of held on to as a part of like a memory stick, so to speak. So as a wee reminder, aka why I brought this theory up, is because the jail actually boasts limestone and, well, regular stone all around it. So think of it as a literal...
sponge.
Yes. So with its pretty intense history, you can kind of speculate wildly how much memory has been trapped in this place.
A lot.
Yeah, so according to www.hauntedrooms.co.uk, here are some of the reported spooky occurrences that people have claimed to have observed or felt/heard while in the jail. So lights turning on or off by themselves in the prison's chapel, which is interesting because apparently psychics visiting the jail report a, quote, evil presence around the chapel balcony. People have also reported being pushed by an unseen force, just anywhere in the jail, didn't really specifically say where.
Just tag, you're it.
Yeah. It's just a ghost trying to play tag. The living have reported hearing random footsteps in areas where no one else is known to be at the time, so phantom footsteps. There have also been unexplained bangs and random voices heard, and these random voices also include the sound of children, not just adult spirits, because we have to have child spirits, of course. We have to. Demons. People roaming the jail also reported feeling that they're being watched by an unknown presence, which kind of reminds me of the Edinburgh vaults with good old Mr. Boots. Remember him?
Yes.
Them. Spooky little bitch. There have been reports of children who either refuse or pause before entering the jail and report being scared for no reason, which could be because the building itself could be kind of perceived as intimidating as a kid. Like, if you put yourself in that position as a child, it's scary.
Yes.
But this one was kind of a common one that I saw across all my research, where kids would just start losing their mind before going in. Like crying, saying, no, I won't go in, I won't go in.
So maybe they shouldn't go in.
Yeah. This might not be the location to take your children. Just gonna put that out there. People have reported hearing cell doors opening and closing on their own, and others claim to have seen full-body apparitions so lively that they get mistaken for the living. Apparently, at one point during the restoration, Governor Dan McGill stayed in the jail with his family to make sure the restoration work was being done appropriately. Not sure the exact time frame, but I'm going to assume it was sometime in the 1960s. It's been documented that when Dan was getting ready for bed one night, he noticed that the chapel light was on, so he proceeded to go to the chapel to turn the light off, as you would. Mm-hmm. The story goes that he looked around the chapel, turned the light off, and went back to his, kind of bedtime routine. In a scene similar to a horror movie, he looked back at the chapel once he was back in his kind of sleeping quarters, and noticed that the light that he just turned off
was
back on.
Ghosts.
He repeated the same scene and reported 3 times before just saying, fuck it, I'm going to bed.
I'll have a nightlight, I guess, because this ghost wants the light.
Could you imagine? I feel as though if that was me and I was, let's say, paying the hydro bill, I would just keep doing it. These ghosts are going to contribute.
This shit costs money.
Yeah, these ghosts aren't going to contribute to the hydro bill. They don't understand the meaning of $1 these days.
You know how many kilowatt hours that's going to cost me?
Exactly. This is not off season.
No.
But yeah, essentially just your kind of average spooky stuff. Things turning on, off, hearing, seeing things, what have you. The next incident that reportedly happened around the restoration period involves an unnamed painter. The painter was working in the dungeon when allegedly a big gust of wind, which presumably came out of nowhere, knocked them down and then pinned them up against the wall. Due to this incident, the painter vowed never to return to the jail.
So the wind kept them against the wall?
Yes.
That's weird.
Yeah, so push them off, whatever, I'm going to say they're on a stool of some sorts. Mm-hmm. Push them off, but then pin them up to the wall.
And nothing's pinning them.
But nothing that they can physically see or touch is pinning them. It's just this wind.
I'm out.
Yep. Bye.
Get a new painter.
Exactly. I wasn't able to find any other reported spooky occurrences beyond this. However, if anyone that's listening has a personal experience in this upcoming shameless plug, email them to us and we'll read it for a future listeners episode. Mm-hmm. To kind of summarize this spooky, weird distraction, although the Kilmainham Gaol in Ireland may not have as many reported hauntings as, let's say, the Edinburgh Vaults in Scotland, and no, I'm not trying to start a spooky war between the 2 countries or 2 locations, this place still has a little bit of a spooky punch. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but it's a really important historical landmark for Dublin for people to educate themselves around and maybe even become more aware of its past. In the future, if we're ever allowed to travel again, hi Doug Ford, can you make that happen? Thanks. I would love to go back to this location, maybe with my EMF reader, just to see what's going on. Ooh. You never know. And that is my weird distraction for this week.
That was a nice little tidbit.
Yeah, just a little spooky one. Now, shout out to my resources. So the History Goes Bump podcast, episode 34, which was published March 16th, 2015. The Authentic Vacations website, The Haunting History of Kilmainham Gaol, no author listed. Heritage Ireland website, no author listed. History Ireland website, Kilmainham Gaol, Dublin, by William Cumming, published in Gems of Architecture for issue 3, May-June 2016, volume 24. The Britannica website, The Great Famine, by Joel Mockyer. The Britannica website, The Easter Rising, by the editors of Encyclopedia Britannica. And once again, the Britannica website again, because, it's just a gold mine there. About Robert Emmet, by the editors of Encyclopedia Britannica. The gov.ie website, The Executed Leaders of the 1916 Rising. Scratchable Map Ireland website by Vera O'Dwyer, July 2019. The Irish Times article, His Grave in Ireland, The Search for Robert Emmet's Body, by Ronan McGreevy on February 14th, 2020. Atlas Obscura website, The Kilmainham Gaol by Queen of the Goths, which is a great username to have. And finally, www.hauntedrooms.co.uk, Kilmainham Gaol, Dublin, Ireland. Now, Christie, can you tell these fine listeners where they can find us, where they can support us, how they can support us, and any other little bit of housekeeping that we have to cover before we say our goodbyes?
Yeah, so our lovely followers, as you already listened to us on here,
yay.
But any other platforms, we're on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcast. A free way to support us. You can get a review for us going, some stars. It's always great.
Yeah.
Nothing to cost at you.
You don't even have to say anything superbly nice, but 5 stars and maybe just say, hey, here's my pierogi casserole recipe.
And we would love to try it.
Yeah, I'd love to try it.
Other than that, you can reach at us at weirddistractionspodcast@outlook.com. Through the email, we would love you to send us some listener stories.
Yes.
We are trying to get that going some more, but we need more stories. So please send us our way. Anything anything spooky, anything not, just a story in general. Like
anything that made you look back and think, that was weird. And like Britney Spears, just give me more. We want more. Give us more.
I'm uncomfortable. Also tweet at us at WeirdDistractI1 and hit us up on our Insta page. Also, if you want to monetize some support, we have Buy Me a Coffee, which is something a little bit going on. And you also go to our Patreon page. We have the 2 tiers, get some bonus content, get some shout outs. Gonna shout out right now to Bailey and Tom.
Yes, bless your souls, you great human beings. Honestly, I don't know what we would do without you. Even though we can't physically see you guys yet to give you hugs, take this thank you, this verbal thank you as a big old warm hug.
Some telepathy ear hugs.
Yes, exactly.
And lastly, head over to Redbubble. We got some merch.
Yeah. Check us out. Google us, damn it.
Anything. They'll find us.
Exactly. And if you need a distraction,
we got you.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks again for listening to Scary Time by Indie Drop-In Network. Check out all of Indie Drop-In shows at indiedropin.com. If you would like your show featured, reach out to us at Indie Drop-In on all social media or go to indiedropin.com.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Wait a minute. I've heard that before. That's the note Jeremy wrote to me in my yearbook in the 6th grade. How'd you even know that?
Because it's from Geico.
Yeah, wait, here it is. Dear Luke, have a great summer. P.S. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. Love, Jeremy.
Geico's had this tagline for years, because we help save people money.
So wait, you're saying Jeremy copied you? Yeah, that actually does sound like something the J-Man would do.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.